in terms of education, when it comes, and I don't know what the situation is like in the UK, but here in Canada, the Muslim community has sort of risen against the public domain of education, right? So a lot of the newer generation of Muslims who are having children and children are starting to go to school are turning away from the public sector of education and
Okay, are they?
opting, yeah, opting a lot towards homeschooling. There's a
Oh, in that
huge,
sense. Oh, you mean
yeah,
like that?
huge uprising of students who are just being homeschooled, and just second to that, Islamic school. Um, but I mean, what's your take on all that? Because I know for me, anyone that I've spoken to so far about it comes with a very strong bias, right? So, family members of mine who do homeschool will say, well, Islamic schools, the fees are ridiculous, and public school is not an option because they're teaching, XYZ thing that we don't agree with. So homeschooling is the only one. And then talk to people who are in Islamic school or teachers in Islamic school, and of course, their bias is towards Islamic school, right? And for me, like I look at it from my own experience. I went to public school. After finishing school, went to the madrasa full time for a year to do my shift, then went back to university and maintained kind of a part-time course with the local madrasa there. So it's been kind of for me, it's been a foot in each ship, if you will, right? Kind of bringing
Yeah,
both things separately but together.
yeah.
What's your take on all of the on the idea of providing that education for your children and which direction the community should go towards?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about community going towards. I think, look, people, they what they feel, it's their lives, their
Mhm.
choices, and their mistakes to make as well.
Yeah,
I think everybody has to. If I was to share some words, my thoughts on it, as in on the, hmm,
because I know
I
you
would,
spent some time in education as well.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, I was well into education. I taught in a secondary school
yeah,
for about, probably about what, maybe about 6, 7 years or something. 6 years. I taught in a college for about, I think, 2 years. I had, like, I qualified as a teacher. This is going back in the mid late 2000s. I did a master's in education. I had that kind of stuff, but I was never uh, impressed with that world. I just, it was what it was, and I ended up doing
mhm,
those things and finding myself in it. And to be honest, I'm so glad I left it. I was like, this is, this. I mean, I get, to be fair, not to take a dig at teachers. I'm sure they do wonderful jobs
yeah,
and great people, but it wasn't a world for me, man. There's too much, so much bureaucracy in it, so much.
mhm,
I'm a bit of a free spirit, I think, and
yeah.
um, but yeah. So, and I was also an examiner for about 4 years
Oh,
for in the UK GCSE RE papers.
okay.
I was an examiner for that for about 4 years. This is why I could, the students in my class in secondary school, I like I because I was so familiar with the how RE exams work with the boards. Even though I was with the particular board, although I did actually participate with two boards during my as an examiner, I knew so well, like I could. It didn't matter who you were. If okay, if obviously I wanted to because I had to because it didn't matter who you were, how clever, intelligent you were. I could ensure that you will pass the exam. It doesn't matter. Like I had formulas that it
Yeah.
doesn't matter whether you know anything. I would ensure like you will. This is why all my students, even the bottom sets, all got GCSEs in RE because in Islamic studies, because I just knew how, because knew it so well and I could figure out how this is how you hack the system. So I would be like, okay, doesn't matter what the question is. This is a guaranteed C, if not B. This is how you're going to do it. You could not even know zero about this topic, and I could teach you, and I did it. And this is why, except the absent, so they would have 5 sets. The bottom set was special needs, so not not them, because they don't really sit the
Right.
exams and stuff. But the bottom set above that, so you had like set 1, 2, 3, 4, which would be an absolute failing set. Every single person from top set to that set, with the exception of one pupil who didn't really do what I said, but if everybody else got a C or above, and I knew how to do it. So this is why, obviously, the schools who did not like me for my, let's say, non-institutionalized views,
Yeah.
obviously were kind of always in between a rock and a hard place, because they always felt that, damn, but how does he get all these people to pass?
Yeah.
So obviously grades mean good things for schools and institutions,
Hmm. Yep.
but it's all fake, man. This whole thing is an illusion. So but coming to this point, that look, I would say it depends what you want out of it.
Mm.
So where your kids are going, should your kids go to a should they go to a private school? By private, you mean by private you mean an Islamic school. Obviously, normal private school is really expensive in the UK. So most people, they wouldn't send their children to private school unless they, private school here in the UK, I'm assuming per year costs something like, I think it costs something like between 15 to 18,000 pounds per year per child. So that's a lot of money. So I'm assuming that's about like 20 grand in dollars, about, so per child per year.
Yeah.
So that's mostly not going to happen. So if what we're discussing here is between homeschooling, between Islamic schools, which
Hmm.
don't cost as much, or some might even be free, and between regular schools.
Hmm.
So I would say, well, it depends what they want out of it and what they're trying to do. Um, Personally, I would say, if this is my thoughts,
Yeah.
we totally, it doesn't mean anything. Just, as the ulama would say, throw them against the wall and ignore them. It's, if the school was a good school that your
Mm.
child could go to, like, in the sense, first of all, they're going to be safe. Okay,
Yeah.
I see. To me, school education. You see, this is weird, because I have a bunch of degrees and I have a bunch of stuff like this, but institutionalized education means nothing. Like, I think it did not teach me, the things I learned were things I wanted to learn. And
Hmm.
I would have, sure. So some of them were just, so the master's was useless. The degrees, okay, the educational degree, whatever. But the psychology degree, I was interested in psychology. So I was learning
Hmm.
psychology before I embarked on a degree. I was
Hmm.
actually doing just degree material stuff. I'd bought books and started reading them. Then I thought, well, why don't I just do a degree, since I'm reading them anyway?
Right.
But it's, there's a quote from Mark Twain that schooling was but a brief interruption to my education. That
Yeah.
so it's, you see, so to me the most important thing is that kids feel safe,
Hmm.
because I think especially secondary schools, there is so much bullying,
Yeah.
and there is so much nastiness that takes place. To me, that is the most important thing. I couldn't give okay, sure, I could care, I do care about results, because I recognize there's a system,
Yeah.
and sure, I want them to be somewhat privileged in this system.
Hmm.
So I don't want them to be at a loss. I would rather, given the spectrum, that they have greater odds than other people, than their counterparts. They're more it's a competitive world, I get that. So, but the first and foremost, are the kids safe? Okay,
Hmm.
do they feel safe? Sorry, do they feel safe? That's, so if the answer to that is no, then then an Islamic school is definitely safer than a regular school. So Islamic schools are usually very safe. Okay, they, from a safety perspective, the kid feels safe compared to many normal schools. So if in the normal school, the child feels safe. Like this normal school has a great, the anti-bullying policy, zero tolerance.
Yeah.
There's a great positive atmosphere when you visit it. There's a lot of support from the staff. I would say that personally, that would score above Islamic schools that
Hmm.
I've seen here in the UK.
Right.
And it would score above homeschooling, because if the child is safe, then then them being around their peers is always much more productive for the
Yes.
greater world. Because unless you want your child to be sheltered for the rest of their lives,
Hmm.
that option definitely outweighs than the other option.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is, well, okay, education as well then obviously comes into it. What's the caliber of education? Because as a homeschooling, how dedicated are you to the cause?
Yeah.
Can you will you always be there consistent? You must be. Can you provide the breadth of of the curriculum, of the experience, of the knowledge? Will you wake up every day? Will you be on time? Will you be
Yeah.
will you be strict? Will you, I mean, I think it would kill. I mean, if I had to, I could never homeschool. It'd be mad.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'll just tell the kids, don't worry about it. We'll meet tomorrow. You got the day off. You'll figure it out in life. Enjoy the mystery. I'd be like, it doesn't. So I could never do it. Okay, so that's not going to happen. This keeps dropping the volume on this, so I don't know whether it's adjusting for other people. Right. So okay, so that's that Islamic thing. Sure, I would think that you'd have a better breadth of education being delivered than homeschooling, but it's still a very sheltered
Yes.
experience. So the problem with Islamic schooling is, sure, they make you pass all the exams because it's very disciplinarian. There isn't
Mhm.
much kind of messing about. There's smaller classes, and they teach you the formula of how to pass.
Yeah.
Teaching kids, if you know how to make kids pass, it's not difficult. It's
Mhm.
like I said. I mean, as an examiner, I would ensure every kid would pass. It's just
Yeah.
by that I didn't have. This doesn't mean for anybody watching that I had the answers. I didn't have the answers. I didn't, because I was an RE examiner, but the kids were doing Islamic studies. So
Right.
as an RE examiner, I had to cover things like Christianity more often. Islam was very rare that I covered Islam in the RE exams. That was for the nationwide. I used to mark exam papers, but that was for Christianity. But it was the paper, the board was the same.
Hmm.
So once you understood that, and you assessed how this works, it's very easy to take away a formula of how to, and just put together a simple structure in saying, well, okay, doesn't matter what it is, I'm going to get you a minimum C.
Right.
You follow these steps, you can't fail. It's bulletproof. And so that's what they, in these Islamic schools, same thing. Like, people know how to make you pass. They'll make you pass. You'll get all the grades.
Right.
You will have a somewhat sheltered experience
Yeah.
of the greater world.
Hmm.
So that's okay. So some people say, well, they don't mind that for their kids. They want. Then it's, what are you see, what it comes back to your objectives. So if that's what you want, like if you say, my greatest aim is, I just want my kids to get I want them to get GCSE, let's say, results.
Yeah.
And I want them to, by the end of it, know so many du'as, and know how to pray salah, and know how to, let's say, stories from
Mm.
the Quran. And I want them to know certain, like, they don't, Islamic schools, they don't know so much, but they have a certain, it's like a low level, but they
Foundations almost. Yeah.
yeah, like they have like an Islamic feel to it. Like they have this, obviously, this ethos where they'll always mention Islamic stuff, names of
Yeah.
Sahaba, certain du'as. So your child will come out knowing those things, most likely. That's so sure, if that's what you want, then sure, do it. That's what will happen. That will happen if you want your
Right.
child to go in there and learn some du'as and know certain things, then they will come out doing that. But to be honest, you could, if that's so passionate about that, you see, you have to weigh up what you want from your child. Your child knowing some du'as, and I don't know if that really outweighs.
Yeah.
Surely you can teach your child du'as. Your child learning, like, let's say 10 du'as isn't something so incredibly fascinating. Like, anybody can do it. It's
Hmm.
not actually, it's I mean, it's literally children do it every day.
Yeah.
So, and the kids that come out of Islamic school, they're not, like, I don't know, like, sometimes some people think if I put my kid in something Islamic, they're going to come out pious. Like, piety is not information.
No, exactly.
Piety is a behavior, like how a person behaves. Sure, maybe your kid might come out pious, but most kids that go to I taught in an Islamic school for
Hmm.
about two of those years. That
Right.
of my teaching years, I taught in an Islamic school. Most kids there got up to what most kids got up to.
Yeah.
So kids smoked weed, they smoked cigarettes, they had girlfriends, they watched porn, they did whatever. Obviously, they weren't doing this in front of you as a teacher, but
Hmm.
you knew this was going on by what was going on between kids. Like,
Yeah.
so this kid got caught with this on his phone in school. One of the kids
Yeah.
did this in school. He got caught with, let's say, this one kid got caught with weed. Now, obviously, you'd find out. Like, kids would get caught doing things. Some kid is blackmailing another kid. There's
Hmm.
bullying going on. They did what normal kids would do in normal schools, and
Yeah.
some kids didn't. Some kids learned great Arabic, and they were really, shall I say, pious, good kids. Like, really, like the goody goody kind of, like, you'd say, like a goody goody kid, like goody goody two shoes kind of kid. But to be honest, I think those kids, and they're wonderful, and they were like, let's say, epic kind of iconic kids to say, oh, like, wow, what amazing kids, never
Hmm.
get up to trouble. But I think personally, those kids would have been like that wherever they were. I think that was just those kids. Like, that was
Has a
in
lot to do with the home environment, right?
and them as well, their
Yeah.
personality. It's like they were just like really just good souled
Mhm.
children that were just always just wanting
Sharif.
to learn. Yeah, they were very sharif by nature. Like, they, you love, everybody loved those kids because
Yeah.
they would always learn in your subject. They would always be keen. They'd always just want to do good things. But they were like, out of that class, they would be like maybe 2%
Yeah.
of, I don't know, not even, okay, maximum 5% of the class. They wouldn't be of the kids, like, they would be like that. Most kids would just be average. But one thing for sure, in Islamic schools, the bullying was a lot less than it was in
Mm.
some secular schools, because
Gotcha.
the classes were smaller, the discipline was more strict. And plus, this is an important thing, that the pupils, the students, their parents were more disciplinarian. So you see, if a child messed about in an Islamic school, you told their parents, they knew they were going to get in trouble.
Hmm.
Whereas in regular schools, the parents don't really care sometimes. So
Yeah,
the
you
kids,
have a mix of everyone.
so the kids are less likely to care. So yeah, so you do get that. So I would say, look, that's the, if you're putting them in an Islamic, so look, I've spoken to people who've said, look, I've put my son in an Islamic school,
Yeah.
and I agree, because I was speaking to them, and they said, because look, I just can't risk my son getting into knife crime and gang
Yeah.
crime. And you know what? I don't, like, to be honest, my first and foremost thing is that he just steers clear of that crowd. And
Mhm.
I 100% back that. Like, I think if you can get a school, definitely Islamic schools will steer away from knife crime and gang crime and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. So if that, sure, you know what, that would be something that I would actually consider. Like, let's say, if, especially with boys, you
Yeah.
see, I think girls, it's less so. Those things are not those issues with girls, but I think with boys, they can get into gangs, they can get into crime, they can get into, and it can
Mhm.
ruin them. These years can. So yeah, I would
Yeah.
feel in that situation, but this is very little to do with Islam as content. It's more to do with the kind of discipline and
Yeah.
authority religion and tarbiyah side. But
Mhm.
Islam as content, I would agree that most of the kids that went to the Islamic school that I taught in, when they went to college and university, they struggled immensely
Yeah.
because they had no experience of the greater world. Like they were very sheltered kids, even
Hmm.
though they were very clever and very like they weren't sheltered in terms of like they knew, they had the latest phones and they were on iPads or whatever it was, or computers, but they were sheltered in terms of the greater discourse in society. Like they weren't a
Yeah.
part of the greater society. Like they
Hmm.
didn't mix with non-Muslims, and they didn't.
Yeah.
So when they went to these greater institutes, and they didn't, a lot of them, when we did meet up with people afterwards,
Yeah.
we found out, a lot of them struggled.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's up to each family, each
Yeah.
parent, do whatever they see best.
Mhm.
And yeah, hopefully people get through. Man, let's I just noticed a bunch of people here.
I won't take up more of your time. It was great speaking to you.
Let's leave it to that. Much
We'll,
love.
we'll keep
Take
in
care.
touch, inshallah.
Yep, stay
But
in touch, man. Assalamu alaikum. People, that was Taha. All right, shukran for the much. For what a discussion, huh? Education. See, some people get surprised. I'm a bit blasé about education. I feel it's okay. I feel it's good if you're going towards a career that you can only attain via, like, let's say, becoming a doctor, becoming an engineer, becoming a lawyer. You can't become these things, becoming a dentist, an optician, or becoming something like that. You can't become these things without an academic route. So yeah, in that sense, I would say, of course, it's great and do it. But I think all the others are just, like they say, Emma. Emma, it's like neither here, neither there. It doesn't natin mein na tera mein. It doesn't make it does it's to me, it's like you leave university and you're like £40,000 in debt, and it's useless. It's like degree means nothing. Like I honestly, I don't think I think it actually dumbs people down. Um, but I'm not against people doing a degree. I just see it as like, okay. I would rather, if a person said to me, instead of doing a degree, I'm gonna do two different business venture startups, and I'm gonna spend 1 year backpacking around the world. That's my 3 years of it. I would rate that and be so much more impressed with that, because degree. But sure, I'm not by me saying this doesn't mean people need to, this is just my thoughts. Yeah, like to me, a degree is like, you're just doing what everybody's doing, and you're only doing it because other people are doing it. It doesn't really mean anything, and you're actually just buying into debt. It's stupid, ridiculous corporate business that have fooled most of the people into thinking they need it. They don't need it. You absolutely it's absolute deception. And it's such a delusion to think that you need it for the other category, and that, of course. But I'm talking about the other, all business admin or whatever these kind of useless degrees are. You don't need degrees for this kind of stuff, and sure. But if you want to do them, obviously, I'm a huge proponent of people must make their own choices and make their own mistakes. They must live their own mistakes. They must learn from their own mistakes. And so, yeah. But I think traveling the world, wow, now that's an education. But you have to travel it. I don't mean tourism. And you can't travel it as tourism as a kid. I mean, okay, they're not a kid, but technically a kid. I mean, okay, what, de facto a kid. 19-year-olds and these people, but they wouldn't have money to travel as tourism, but they would struggle. But the struggle is important because through that struggle, they grow, they mature, but obviously there's other things, there's safety concerns and everything. But yeah, I do feel that. Mhm. The only degrees we need is temperature. Allah, Allah. Yes, somebody said teach them to code. Yeah, coding, sure, all that kind of. But that stuff, it's free, or it's like it's different. You know, it's not a degree. Sure, there might be a degree in it, but a degree is useless in it. So these are my thoughts. Like, I think, okay, I'm saying the word useless. Let me retract that. Okay, it's non-impressive. Let me put it like that. It's just like, it's like just another like just a blind follower. That's all. It's not useless. Okay, I retract that word. It's not useless. Sure, it may have some use. It may have some use, but then origami has some use. Learning how to make a paper airplane has some use, and learning how to people go, yeah, Mufti, you said it has some use, and then you compare it to origami. I love origami. Okay, as a kid, I learned how to make that. The flapping. I still make it till today. I make it for and show it. It's like, wow, look, and the crane kind of flaps its wings.